Good evening, everyone. On behalf of EM, I would like to welcome you to what promises to be a very exciting discussion. We're going to talk about female leadership, and we are going to talk about what it means to break the glass ceiling in different parts of the world, be it the West or Russia. And we'll talk about how the pandemic has changed how women encourage other women to stay in the workforce, despite all the challenges that have been facing us during this crisis situation. Today, we will focus mainly on technology companies and technology investments. So let me, without further ado, introduce you to our all-star panelists. They're absolutely incredible and remarkable women in their respective fields. If I may start, I'll start with you, Olga Andrienko. We have her, she's the head of global marketing at SEMrush, which is a Boston-based software as a service company that provides digital marketing and online visibility tools for more than 6 million marketers. We also have Anna Mikhina, who is the vice president and head of mobile applications at Tinkoff, which is a Russian leading digital bank with more than 11 million customers across all of Russia. We also have Ekaterina Lukyanova, who's a partner at Bérénice Vostok, which is an incredible private equity firm, which has been responsible for pretty much every single most important technology deal and the development of all the most important Russia's and Eurasia's technology companies that you can think of. That includes Ozone, for example, which is dubbed Russia's Amazon. We also have Elena Haykin, which is a partner at Digital Horizon, a very exciting VC fund that has great expertise in European and Israeli markets and focuses greatly on investments into startups by passionate immigrant entrepreneurs. And last but not least, we have Bérénice Magistretti, who is a reporter for Forbes, Wired UK, Vanity Fair, and is also an advisor to startups and angel investor. So ladies, thank you so much for finding the time to participate in our discussion. And let me kick it off by sort of bringing up the subject that we're all here to discuss. I'm sure you all know that breaking the glass ceiling for women in technology and investment in technology has been sort of a popular topic of discussion in Western media. But how has your personal experience shown that, does the glass ceiling actually exist? And how has breaking the glass ceiling, what has it meant for you? And, you all come from different parts of Russia or the West. And lastly, how has the pandemic changed the process of breaking that glass ceiling, if you find that this is actually the case? So why don't we kick off with you, Olga? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm certainly aware that it exists. I'm not sure it was, that I can describe anything from my personal experience that would fit like a traditional description of it. I would say that whenever opportunity came up, I just grabbed it. And then, so nobody ever assigned me a role. And probably this kind of like, even if I hadn't been proactive, then I wouldn't have got it. So this is, I think, and this is just my personal trait, but I've seen a lot of women who were not probably, who were more shy or less proactive. And then for them, this is a real challenge, where they would expect their their boss to discuss the growth review and promote them. And this happens more rarely. And for example, in our space, I'm the only female speaker representing the software tools. And yeah, I can see that this is a challenge in our market.
Well, thank you so much, Olga. It sounds like proactivity was a sort of the go-to tool that helped you go ahead in life. I wonder if, Anna, you're you work for a digital bank that was branchless from the start. So it's in Russia, it's obviously a big tech company. I wonder if you have had the same experience, and I wonder whether you think a glass ceiling actually exists for women in Russia.
My experience is that yes, the glass ceiling still exists, and fortunately, I was lucky. And now in my company, Tinkoff, everything is good with gender equality. And maybe you have heard that Russian Forbes even included Tinkoff in the top best companies for women in Russia. And it ranked high on the Forbes list due to the minimal gap in average wages for men in women. In addition, 37% of the IT staff and engineering staff at Tinkoff are women. But at the same time, in my previous job, I had an unpleasant experience when my boss refused to raise my salary. When I tried to negotiate, he replied that I have a husband, so I have no need to raise my salary, and how these two things connected. And also, I was in a situation when a man was promoted instead of me. And my boss' argument was, it's easier to negotiate with a man, and male developers will respect him more. So I think the tremendously transparent grading will help with the glass ceiling. And when for each level of the position, there is a public salary bracket and exact list of what qualities you need to have, what KPI you need to achieve in order to get this level. And I think only closed salary data creates opportunity not only for the glass ceiling, but for discrimination on any grants.
Well, thank you, Anna. I think your experience and your example talking about the husband and being promoted and those types of situations are very familiar to a lot of women globally, not necessarily just in Russia. And you've also offered some really practical steps of how companies can address these issues. I wonder if I could switch to the investment side of things. And Ekaterina, if you could maybe share with us your experience with the glass ceiling and maybe how has the pandemic shifted how you're tackling these issues if they're real for you?
Well, I would just say that in investments, I think investments are a perfect job for women. Not only because we're better, I'm kidding, but because we are not trying to compare ourselves to, any alpha male in the room. We're trying to compromise. We're trying to find a solution. We're trying to, basically find a good deal for everybody. And within investment, I'm perfectly sure that a woman is not worse than a man in any case, and in just not only in investment, I would say, but in tech as well. But investment is just a perfect fit. So I personally, I never met with a glass ceiling that existed within the companies that I worked for. I was lucky enough. I know for sure that in some companies there is one. And mostly not in investment as such, but investment banks. I know a handful of beautiful women fighting their tooth and nails and children on their head, just trying to push through the hierarchy of basically a male dominant category. But with all that, they're all beautiful and smart and ambitious enough to get where they want to. So I would say a lot of that comes from a glass ceiling in the head. And if you you want to perceive some, dream job that you have in your mind, you would find a company that would appreciate you, not because you're, not a married woman, but because you're a smart employee. And being, a gender is somewhat. I'm sorry for my English, but an asshole is not gender. How to say compliment. You can be woman, which is a bad boss. You can be a man who's a bad boss. It's just a trait of a character. We should probably, the glass ceiling exists even when sometimes when the woman is the boss, right? So you should be more ambitious, more active in pursuing your dreams. And that's something that I think globally is something that you can actually elaborate on as a woman, being a investor, a tech entrepreneur, or somebody, just helping women grow up and in the hierarchy and helping them to achieve their goals internally as well.
Well, thank you, Ekaterina. I think it's very insightful. I wonder if, Elena, you would agree with some of the perspectives that we've already heard, because it looks like we're a little bit split on whether this is actually a thing or not, and it depends on like very particular experience of a woman, and maybe depends on which region you're dealing with a glass ceiling at. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Does it exist, or what has your experience been?
Sure, thank you very much. Absolutely, I would agree with everything that has been said, and absolutely, I would agree with the statement, with Ekaterina's statement, that women in investment business, I wouldn't say more privileged, but probably it's easier for us to deal with this ceiling. Apparently it exists, and I do not have data to back this up, but I started asking women in various industries what do they think about the ceiling, and more interestingly, I was interested in the fact that they, at some point, they just stop fighting, they stop pursuing their career goals. So they just say, oh, I had enough. For example, I'm a senior associate somewhere, or I do not want this vice president role. And I was asking them, why would you stop? Why would you not compete? What experiences have you encountered that made you stop? And there were actually two sets of answers. One was lack of encouragement, and this is something I would say that I have also experienced, because I was born in Morocco and grew up in the Middle East, but I grew up in a Russian family. And when I started my career and I was 19, with all these 24/7 long hours, for example, my mother, she was considering this as a hardship. She couldn't even imagine that this is something I was willing to do. This was something that was driving me. She was saying, oh, poor girl, you have to work so hard. And I was just explaining to her that it's not because I have to do something, it's due to my difficult life circumstances. It is something that is driving me. This is something I want to do, and I really enjoy it. Well, apparently you cannot enjoy lack of sleep, but you're enjoying the business, you're enjoying these experiences, people you meet, so various things. But another thing those women were mentioning is that they were sometimes they were overlooked during the promotion session, or they were underpaid, and they said, we just do not want to fight the system. So what would it change if I go to my boss and say that I'm still better, if I fight for my place? It's an extra challenge. If I fight for my promotion, it's an extra challenge you have to overcome. And sometimes women were just not interested in doing that, and I can understand why.
Thank you, Elena. Let us round up with Bérénice. You have a very unique experience because you have worked both in Europe and the United States, and you bring sort of this unique cultural perspective on how technology companies and investments work. And you're both an angel investor and a journalist. So I wonder if you could sort of tell us if you think that the glass ceiling is cultural, if it's all in your heads. Like, what have you seen in different countries, different cultures, and different regions?
Yeah, thank you. I think, all the ladies made very valid points, but I'm going to have to disagree just in general because, from what I've seen, as you said, both in Europe and the US, there is a deeply ingrained and rooted bias against, women and underrepresented communities in general. But so I would say that the glass ceiling is there and has not been shattered yet. I think, I grew up in Switzerland, which you would think is the most democratic, neutral country in the world, and yet women weren't allowed to vote until the 1970s. And my mother, who's a very active, feminist and works towards female empowerment, fought for equal pay day campaign 15 years ago, and we still don't have equal pay in Switzerland. So I think if you take that model of neutrality and democracy and see how much they're lagging in terms of women's rights, it sort of speaks, to how a lot of countries, I think, are still misrepresented in terms of women's rights. And then I moved to San Francisco. I lived there for 3 years. And again, you would think it's, the center and the hub of tech and innovation, and they're so forward thinking and cutting edge technology and artificial intelligence. But I was shocked when I moved there in the summer of 2016, because of how homogeneous, I never know how to say that word, homogeneous the Silicon Valley is in terms of white male dominating. And so this is not to speak out against these men, but there is an inherent problem and an inherent bias when you think that, I think it's like more than 90% of the deciding investors and venture capitalists are men. So it's also very hard for women to reach partnership in terms of becoming a female VC. Sequoia Capital, which is one of the leading VC firms in the world, brought on its first female partner, I think 3 years ago. So when you see that these top institutions that are glorified on an international level aren't even setting the example themselves, even though they have the resources, the education, the money, the funding, for me, it's problematic. And it's also a top-down approach. Well, you'll need maybe more diverse set of limited partners who will invest in more diverse VC firms, who will invest in more diverse founders. And then, when you think that, I think it's less than 3% of venture capital money that goes towards female founders, in my opinion, there's a huge problem. And so it's systemic and it's ingrained, and there's still a lot to do. So I'm kind of taking a contrarian approach to what has been discussed so far.
Thank you, Bérénice. I think it's a great and very interesting perspective. Anna and Olga, I wonder if I could turn to you now, and let's sort of come back from the global context of where things stand to the pandemic. It's obviously has touched all of our lives, and I wonder if, as female leaders in your companies, what has it meant for you? What challenges did you face as leaders in your companies, and how did being a woman working in tech affect how you tackle these challenges? And maybe what leadership strategies have you deployed to ensure good outcomes in your companies? Anna, let me start with you.
Oh, thanks for the question. Of course, I suppose it doesn't matter in this situation if the leader a man or a woman. And as a leader, I faced lack of motivation in my team. And some of my team members were not on optimal performance level. And I added more one-on-one meetings and with each person in my team, and developed informal team communication. I think it's very important to ensure, that your employees don't overwork, maintain a work-life balance, and so on during quarantine. And as a woman, after switching to remote work, I was faced with the fact that in addition to work, I had to take, all the household responsibilities. Schools and kindergartens was closed, and now it closed again. And it's very important for me to make sure that my child studies from home properly. And on top of helping my son with school, I need to prepare food 3 times a day, do the laundry, and so on. And I feel a lot of guilt, really, that I do not spend enough time with him. And at home, this feeling grows stronger, much stronger. And but my son is 14, and now he's practically independent. But I can imagine what women who have smaller children have to go through every day. Really, it's a big challenge for women all over the world.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I think a lot of women globally can relate to what you're going through, especially with lack of childcare and childcare policies across the world in many developed countries. That is a big problem. Olga, I wonder, I read one of your columns recently where you talk about leading by example, and Anna just talked about it, sort of raising the number of one-of-ones that she's doing. In terms of your leadership style, is that how the pandemic has affected you? Have you turned to one-on-ones? What have you experienced and what challenges have you faced?
I think everyone was fighting their own battles. Like I live alone, for example, so I had the challenge of completely like being in isolation and not having anyone. And then some of my team members, they were with the kids, and it was very different. And I think I became a lot more honest and then gave feedback differently. So because if you sit in the same room, then there is also this more emotion. And then if I give feedback, and we have a lot of like regular feedback sessions, then I had the challenge to also I had the opportunity to just share the warmth as well. And here I had to use my words, and then I think I got a lot better in communicating well, and it's not actually in the Russian nature to share positive feedback a lot. And then, well, I trained myself well, and I say thank you. I said thank you before a lot, but now I think I try to express gratitude even more, just because the words is the only thing that I have, and they became even more important. So I had one-on-ones weekly with my leads. What I did, I created the daily stand-up for like 15 minutes, where all of my team leads, we gathered together for 15 minutes. Everyone has only 2 minutes to share what they were doing. And actually we strengthened our teamwork, because we didn't have that before. And they were suddenly really on board and then aware of what each team was doing. And it only took like 2 minutes for them to share. And so this really worked well. And a lot was done just by by our CEO, who just, for example, we were allowed to work like 4 days a week. And then if we were like feeling really demotivated, or then we could, so anyone from my team could just say like, guys, I need a day off, and then relax. So we had a really understanding, welcoming environment. I think for being the head of the department, like everyone just really expects, like if they are upset, or they just expect you to solve the problem still. And then it's really difficult to be really this motivational and inspiring person when actually you're feeling also like not really yourself, or facing the same really uncertain
challenges.
So yeah,
thank you so much, Olga.
Yeah, difficult.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience. I wonder if we could again switch back to the investment side, and we have some great top managers, female top managers on our panel today. But I'm wondering if you, as investors, could maybe touch upon what you're seeing from female founders that you interact with. I wonder if, Bérénice, I can start with you. You work with some femtech companies, so I'm wondering what you're seeing from some of the female founders. If you could briefly touch upon that.
Yeah, sure. I think, as I mentioned before, it's, in my opinion, and I've seen it firsthand, I've reported about it and written about it, it is objectively much harder for female founders to raise capital. And I think it also stems from the fact that it's been proven, I think, by a Harvard Business Review study that said that female founders are asked often very different questions than male founders. In the sense, like, investors will ask male founders more of like, encouraging, positive questions like, how will you succeed? How will you not? And whereas for female founders, they will ask them much more sort of preventative, protective questions of like, how are you going to make sure you won't fail? And so it's already a psychology at the beginning that's in place, that where you see that inherent bias. And I think it's that much harder for female founders to raise capital when it comes to female femtech startups that cater to women's health and sexual wellness, because again, a lot of the male investors I know have had told me, and when I was in San Francisco, that they viewed this space as a bit of a niche market, when it's 50% of the population, and sometimes even more when it caters to fertility because the men are involved. So I think that in the femtech space, it is that much harder to raise capital. Having said that, we've seen some great funding rounds this year, for example, and I think it comes to, a lot through the digital sort of space. So, for example, virtual clinics for women, where Maven Clinic, which is a leading digital clinic for women and families based in New York, I think raised a $45 million Series C round. And you have also a Peanut, which is this app for motherhood and women trying to conceive, that recently raised a $12 million Series A. So, you are seeing some amazing female founders that are really pushing and are raising fantastic rounds. But last night I had a chat with January Ventures, which is a VC firm based between Europe and the US, and their operator network. And, they were saying that because of COVID, I think, women are going to be much more penalized than men, and of course also underrepresented communities. So I think it's really about making sure that, there is this sort of level, that we level the playing field, and that, everyone has access to the same opportunities. And again, that at every level there is this diversity that's needed, so that these opportunities are offered to everyone. But I'm optimistic. I think that more and more women are becoming angel investors as well, which is tremendously helpful, because these are the investors writing the first checks at pre-seed. And so even better if more women become angel investors, because they can give sort of, that kickstart to female-led companies.
Thank you, Bérénice. Elena and Ekaterina, I wonder if I could turn to you and see what your thoughts are, because you're dealing with Russia and Eurasia more than probably Bérénice and her experience. So are women or female founders more challenged than men during the pandemic? Elena, let me turn to you first.
Well, before I answer your question, I would like to make a comment, because I'm sitting here thinking that it's really tempting, not to notice. We are so used to existence of this ceiling, and we taught ourselves, we learned how to swim in those waters, that we stop actually thinking about it, and we stop raising awareness about this. And it's very important, I think, that we continue speaking and making sure that women really understand what's going on, because as I said, sometimes it's just the usual, the perception is that that's the usual way of life, and there's nothing we can do about it, but to the contrary, we can do a lot. And answering your questions, I fully support the statement that it has been very difficult to fundraise for female founders, and now it's especially difficult. And I've seen very talented ladies just freezing their businesses, freezing their ideas and company growth potential due to COVID. They were saying, "Oh, we will continue after 2021 when things crystallize." And I was asking them, "Why would you do this? You're losing the momentum. Maybe it's now the perfect time for you." And the answer would be a lack of financing and lack of energy, lack of support. So they would say, "Well, I was going to do that because my kids were in school. And now when they're not going to school, I just do not have inner resources to drive this thing." And it's like a situation in which you cannot really do anything because you only have 24 hours. And on one hand, there are large corporates who support their employees, and I'm very glad to hear that some were given an extra free day, and they were supported by their team leaders and by their brands. But when you're a female founder, you're all by yourself. That's why mentoring sessions, all those platforms which we now see, VCs who are providing not only financing, but also support and encouragement and empowerment are very, very important, because sometimes it takes just 5-10 minutes of a proper conversation to persuade that lady to continue, to give her certain hints or maybe even help, or provide, I don't know, a nanny or something so that she could continue. Because otherwise, when you see that you're by yourself in front of this huge wave, it's really very difficult.
Thank you, Elena. I really appreciate your comments. And I wonder if Ekaterina, you're seeing the same things that Bérénice and Elena are saying. And sort of to build upon that, do you think there's anything that can be done about this? And maybe you have done something in your work with female founders that has helped them during the pandemic or will help them after the pandemic. Could you share your thoughts, please?
Yeah, just a quick comment. As I'm in private equity more, so we're looking at more staged companies that already grew. I've seen even less female founders that my colleagues do, Elena and Bérénice, just because they don't grow to the scale that we need to actually look at them. And I think that's part of the challenge in the pipeline, is that we have men have higher tolerance to risk, right? It's for women, the risk, money risking is something of, I think, a little bit more scary thing to do than men. It's what Lena was trying to tell. Basically, there's a lot of volatility involved, a lot of bets in the place especially when you're launching new enterprise. And women tend to not bet their family in terms of doing the startup. And for me, when I meet this wonderful woman who found all the way to private equity, I tend to empower them that they've done a great job. Obviously, they grew to the scale where Baring is interested to look at them, and that's the first place. And even if we don't get to some sort of a deal, which happens, it's not a reason to develop the business further, to prove the business model, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that's what I was getting at the first place. The more women you see around yourself fighting with whatever they're having, mediocre boss who is doing a lot of unnecessary things not to promote her, female founder who thinks that the business model is not there, COVID, should I, maybe not, I'm not sure. You should probably, and what I'm trying to do every day in my life, I try to empower them, saying that there might be a risk in your assessment of a risk that you're looking at might be different if somebody else looks at that, and you just try to get advice from the people you trust, from the mentor, from the investor community, from everywhere, just from the advisors on talent. If you're dealing with some career development that's not working how it should be, to feel empowered that your decision and your view and situation is not limited by the way it should be, as Elena said, the way it worked previously. That's the only way you should do it is a small step, right? But we should all take them one and one and one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. The only way to break that glass ceiling is kind of like make a crack one day at a time, one step at a time. And that's sort of a way to deal with a situation. I wonder if we can stick to sort of the topic of the pandemic and how women are in general treated during this crisis. I don't know how many of you have seen this report, but McKinsey and Lean In, which is Sheryl Sanders' feminist organization, have shared this report, this annual report that talks about the state of women in the workplace. And what has been discovered as a result of this report is that 1 in 4 women, as a result of what's happening during the pandemic and the gender roles that are in play, is thinking about either downshifting her career or leaving the workplace altogether. And I personally think that this could be a terrible loss for corporate America, for the world, and for female founders. But I wonder if, especially for corporations, since Anna and Olga, we have you here, if you can maybe share what tech companies can do to keep women in the workplace, and whether you think tech companies have any kind of advantage in helping women navigate this difficult time. Anna, I would like to start with you, please.
Oh, I think it would be useful if companies provided employees, especially for women, flexible work schedule and some compensation for food delivery, cleaning or babysitting services while they work remotely. I know that Google does it, and I think it's great. And in post-COVID-19 world, for example, I think it will be important to create a friendly environment for women. For example, open kindergartens for employees. I dreamed about it while my son was smaller, and respond quickly, for example, to harassment claims and other things. I think it's a big problem in some companies. And I think that technology companies have more tools for this. They have experience, of digital transformation, and offer good benefits and perks package, because they used to, to take part in intense competition for IT candidates. And, the restriction imposed on a woman by her traditional social role are still invisible to men and very perceptible to women. And even in spite of the legal equality of the genders in most countries, even in Switzerland now, virtually every woman sooner or later make a choice. Either live by work, but sacrifice something else. For example, having a baby, a happy marriage, or something like that, or stop moving up in the career ladder to please the family. And this is how, in my opinion, the glass ceiling appears in the first place. And you may have read the studies that career of men scientists shot up in quarantine, but the opposite is true for the women careers in science. And I think companies need to talk to women, tell them that their work is very important for company, and show that women have support and really help them. I think the most important step.
Thank you so much, Anna. I love that you always give some very practical steps about what companies and can do to help women stay in the workplace. Olga, I wonder if these are some of the steps that Anna has outlined is something that you have personally done or intend to do. And what do you think? My main question was, what can tech companies do to keep women in the workplace during and post-pandemic?
I'll be fighting for the right for all my teams to remain remote, because we have we can work until the end of the year for sure. We can work remotely from wherever in the world, and then I just felt like my teams actually. They're all so they're not in offices. Sometimes I have and then all teams are distributed, and it actually also made them stronger, because now nobody feels left out. They feel that they're all together, at least with the screens. And then I think that I would love this to stay further, and ensure that they have flexible working hours. And as Anna said, I think this is really the best benefit, and without in stress-free environment, like post-pandemic, it would really beneficial. And one of my friends, he's in Berlin, he created the Nonna Care startup, which actually it's kind of a B2B marketplace where he finds the nannies and then offers this service to corporations as a perk. And I think this is great because there are some for example, a kindergarten won't be probably like a safe place. A lot of parents are really nervous about just leaving their kids. But if there's someone the childcare service is a great solution. So I really loved what he did, and I think this is great. Also at SEMrush we have insurance for kids in some of the countries, and I think this is great. This also leaves at least some peace of mind, which is really necessary and important for women.
Thank you, Olga. I think sort of one of the main takeaways that I heard is that you're going to fight till, maybe not till death, but really fight really hard to keep remote work in place for women. I wonder if all of you can maybe talk about whether you think more flexible remote working arrangements might actually help tech companies and tech investors hire more women and work with more women going forward. I wonder if you think it will become a positive change for gender balance and gender diversity. Ekaterina, why won't you share your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it will be a long way to that. And having a 2-year-old in my own home, that's exactly why I'm speaking from the office right now. Otherwise, you would be hearing some screaming and tantrums and everything that you would expect from a 2-year-old. I love him with all my heart, and I tend to spend a lot of my time working remotely. But if I do have to attend some meetings that will require, not being around, screaming toddler, I tend to go to the office. But with all that jokes, I would say that women would appreciate having more remote work if they have availability of kids being taken care of, and I mean in a good way, not just stored in some dark place, with some within either corporations finding a way to have some corporate nannies, some special places to actually leave your kids safely, and for them to develop within that time frame that you need to work with. And my sister works at Nike in US, and they have a perfect place in Oregon where they have just the kindergarten for every employee, with the special nannies, just special everything. And my sister has 3 kids, so she doesn't worry a bit when she has to work, off hours, special, quarterly reports. We've all been there, all done that. So, I mean, when the infrastructure is in place, the woman in the workforce, either in tech or investment, is invaluable just because she has a full focus on what she does. And I believe she does best in most of the cases.
Fantastic. I'm excited for your sister, and I want to go to Oregon now, even though I don't have kids, but that kindergarten sounds exciting. Elena, I wonder if you could share your thoughts on that. Is remote work the future for diversity and for helping women?
I'm a huge fan, I should say, of remote arrangements. I think it's very beneficial for all. And I'm sure it might be very beneficial as well for promotion of women rights and equality arrangements. I also do have a 2-year-old toddler at home, and that's why I do like visiting our office and spending time in the office, especially while it's so quiet and we do not see a lot of people here because the whole office, I mean, the whole company is working remotely now, but the office is still open so we can use the facilities. But after the pandemic, I think those not necessarily remote arrangements, which are very nice to have, but those flexible arrangements would be very, very beneficial. So be it kindergartens or nurserying room or just your right to go home or work from home if it's needed, if your baby's sick or if it's just nervous or you feel that you spent the previous week working too much and now you want to spend an extra hour, 2 or 3 per day with your kid, or be just visible. You know, sometimes toddlers, they become proper kids and they do not need you every moment, so they can play around, they can be in the house, but that's important for them to know that mommy's there, it's that mommy is within a very easy reach, you know, so you can just knock on the door, check up on her, she's here sitting with her computer, that's fine. So basically, if the employer or the whole ecosystem or the environment is friendly and there are different options available, that's always beneficial. And maybe if we can also, you see in every comment I'm making, I use this word encouragement, because I really think it's very important. I do take part in a lot of mentoring sessions for female founders. I participate in various platforms where I keep saying that you're not alone. There are role models. You can call, you can drop us an email, ask your questions. And basically, it's very important to build this kind of an ecosystem that allows you to be to act to the best of your abilities without actually thinking on the background that I'm guilty or there's something going on at home or I have other duties to perform. So to me, it's a good chance so that we now try and then we start implementing those new flexible arrangements.
Thank you, Elena. I know that Anna might have a slightly different take on what remote arrangements mean for women. I wonder if you could share that with us.
Yeah. Frankly, I'm not sure that remote work will help in the fight for the gender balance. And of course, there are some benefits. For example, flexible working hours, or women judged less by their appearance, you know, all these meetings with home pants. And there is less risk of harassment, for example. But the main problem so far is to make women and their needs visible. And I don't think that working from home help for it in any way. Of course, working remotely should be an option, especially for women who cannot combine, you know, family and commute to the office, but still want to earn their living and stay independent in most of situations. But at the same time, I think for companies, at the end of the day, KPIs and business results are as important as good indicators of employees' mental health and their calmness and happiness. And if remote work helps, why not? But have some doubts.
Thank you, Anna. I wonder if, Bérénice, you can sort of give us the judgment call. Is remote work here to stay? Is it going to help our mental health? Is it going to make things worse for women? Is it the universal equalizer for women and men? What are your...
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be the neutral Swiss one here. I think all the women here made excellent points, and it's very hard to say one is better than the other. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I've been working remotely for a couple of years now, whether it's as a freelance journalist or as now a startup advisor and angel investor. So it's a structure I'm very used to and familiar with, and that the majority of the time really, suits me because I like having that flexibility. I don't have children, and so it does, it's fine for me to stay at home. I don't have, crying babies distracting me. And because I can imagine that, can't always be easy. So it's a structure that suits me, but I think that it can also be very isolating and lonely to constantly be working alone from home. And yes, you do have, co-working spaces and, but I think, having, being part of a team and, that's also where the, boosting the morale and sort of sense of community comes in. So, I think it's very tricky. I think that for women, it's just important for the employers to provide women with options and not say, you either come 9 hours a day or, don't come at all. And, I think being able to have, and I think COVID has, if there is a silver lining, sort of, opened that discussion in terms of like, okay, let's think of the work model in a different way. And, everyone has been working from home and remotely for the past few months. And, there are still companies running and the world is still turning. So I think that, it's there's nothing catastrophic about it. But now it's really about thinking, I mean, yes, what's better for women, but what's just better for employees as a whole. And I think that, Anna, you mentioned also mental health, which is so important and I think is, so overlooked. So I think that providing also the right tools and the right resources for every employee is key, whether that's offering a daycare or, healthcare benefits or flexible working hours. I also think that as women, we do endure more, physical and hormonal afflictions, whether it's, having your periods or endometriosis or polycystic ovarian syndrome or menopause. I mean, they can be very harrowing and, exhausting conditions to have to go through as a woman, I think. And so, how do you factor that in as well? Not that women should get preferential treatment, but it's just we're physically and biologically different than men. So how do you factor that in? I think that, how do you say, introducing paternal leave is also very important so that it's not always up to the mother to have to take so much time off work and then come back after nursing for a few months. I think, Sweden did a great job, for example, at, giving both parents that time to spend with their children so that the woman isn't penalized at work. I think there's a lot to think about. And, COVID has sort of invited us to think about these structures and dynamics in a different way.
Thank you, Bérénice. I see Anna giving the thumbs up at the mention of paternity leave. So, and I think I saw Ekaterina do that as well. So I'm going to give Anna one of the final words. And since we're almost at time, I'm going to ask you to maybe address the future of diversity for women in the post-pandemic world and sort of give us one final maybe sentence about the final thoughts that you want our female viewership to. And I'm sure there are men out there as well to sort of get out of this conversation. And it's been a fantastic discussion. So on paternity leave and diversity, and what are your final thoughts?
Of course, it's my dream to work in company with paternity leave. My my partner, if my partner works in a company with paternity leave. But first of all, I want to address my words for women and for my colleagues in panel. Thanks a lot. I think the best decision now, support other women and seek their support. And of course, get rid of misogyny, because, you know, it's our common fight. I wish all women don't be afraid of themselves. And it doesn't matter if you want to punch the wall or if you want to be gentle and feminine. This is not what determines what kind of person or employee you are. And of course, as a fan of concrete steps, I want to reach out to companies and their decision makers. Please make specific actions. Allow employees to combine remote work with office, and expand benefits perks to help women. Sorry, and of course, it's a good thing to teach men how to support women in our world, and show the men the problems women face at work. Because sometimes, you know, when I sharing my experience with colleagues, with men, or with my friends, you know, our women challenges are so surprising for them really often. So
absolutely. Thank you, Anna. I don't know if those challenges make you all want to punch a wall. They do make me want to punch a wall sometimes. But I wonder if, Elena, you have some final thoughts for us, maybe a sentence or two that you want our, especially female viewers, to.
Well, I truly believe that this fight, if we can call it, for equal rights will come to an end, and we will be equalized. Maybe not tomorrow, but all those issues we are discussing now, I think it's just a matter of time, and we will get to the Swiss neutrality at some point, and we will be bothered probably with different issues we will need to solve at that moment. So basically, I'm very glad we are raising awareness. I'm very glad we are discussing it. And as they say, where there is a will, there is a way. So we are on the way, and I'm sure the result will be absolutely positive and beneficial for all stakeholders. So very happy to be part of this movement.
Thank you, Elena. Olga, do you agree with this, raising awareness? And again, what are your final thoughts on?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and very also inspiring to be part of the panel. I started thinking that there's a lot of judgment of women among women, and this is also, I think, this is like we shouldn't we should encourage and support and inspire one another, and then judge less, because I see online in the comments and on Instagram or anywhere, there are fights, and then they're like, and I feel that maybe there is a right way for one woman, and then there is a right way for another. So just accepting that and encouraging, and then giving, support to one another is equally important as expecting that from everyone else.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. Nobody likes, I mean, maybe men like a good cat fight, but women should probably stay away from those. Ekaterina, I wonder if you wanted to share some thoughts with her, whether female and male.
Well, just a quick one. I mean, every beautiful face that you're seeing in this conference is a proof that you can do it, actually, and that you can find a proper way to navigate through all the storms that we're all facing. So I would just reiterate, just for everybody who is fighting with these things, be it glass ceilings in the head, in the culture, in the workplace. Be bold, be active about it. Find a proper sponsor, be it a woman or a man. There are beautiful, smart men out there who will help you navigate the storms. Just find a proper mentor, and if you don't find it with the structure you're having, find another one and another. Don't give up. That's the major point I'm seeing in all of this discussion, and I would agree with all of that. Everybody, just empower women and men around you to grow further and be not judgmental. I agree with Olga.
I think these thoughts are really great, and the part about not giving up and encouraging each other unilaterally, women and men, I think is great. So Bérénice, I wonder if you could be our Switzerland and sort of round up this discussion with your final thoughts.
Sure, happy to. Thank you for the honor. I think that it really comes down to being able to, choose freely, feel empowered by that decision, and not have the entire society judge you. And I think, whether that's choosing to be a career woman that works 24/7 and that wants to make it to the top and earn a lot of money, that's fine. If it's, choosing to have 5 kids and wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, and being super happy with that should be fine too. If it's choosing to freeze your eggs because you're not sure and you want to have options, I think as women we are judged way more in society for our decisions. It's you had children too soon, you had children too late, you had too many children, and what about your work, and what about pleasing your husband, and what it's an impossible sort of combination. And I think, yes, it's about women, feeling empowered and standing strong, but it's also about society being more supportive and less judgmental. And to the point that a lot of the women on this panel made in terms of, a lot of women judging other women, I would agree, because, for example, on a personal level, in my professional life, the only negative experiences I've had were with other women, unfortunately, where there was just a lot of jealousy and manipulation and criticism. And I think I've had wonderful experiences with male mentors. And so I think, that's where, as women, we do have to step up. This sounds super corny and American, but it's really about, empowering ourselves and empowering one another to really show that support. And I think that's so important, to have these communities of women and these mentors, and having these platforms to be able to share our personal experiences. And I'm going through, I just had a miscarriage, or I'm going through menopause, or I'm arguing with my husband, or this woman is horrible to me at work, and just being able to share and having that sort of open and safe space where other women will listen to you and share their experiences. I think there's nothing more empowering than really sharing your experiences openly and just feeling that support in return.
Thank you so much. I think I want to thank you, Bérénice, Anna, Olga, Elena, and Ekaterina, for this absolutely wonderful panel discussion. And I would like to leave our viewers and all of you with a following quote. I really love Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was the US Supreme Court Justice who just passed away. And she said something absolutely wonderful, which I hope holds true and will hold true for all of us going forward. And she said that women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And I do hope that this is something that we can stick to. These are the values that we can support. And again, I thank you for your time. So thank you to our panelists and to our viewers, and good night.
Thank you so much, Olga.
Thank you very much. Thank you.